Hi guys, let's talk about solar panels. So today we're going to talk about folding versus rigid and the price differences. So that's a 400 watt Anchor solar panel, but £550. That's an all power 200 watt folding solar panel. I'm going to refer to my notes because I've forgotten. That is £190. And that's the MPOWs one. That's 110 watts. That's coming in at £76 with a discount. So combined, in pound, shilling and pence, I've paid £815 for 700 watts of usable, potentially 700 watts of folding solar panels. Now, for this one, which will be on the screen, is from City Plumbing. That's a rigid panel. It's 500 watts, and that's £75. Right? So, to put that in perspective, for the same price as that, you could have 7 of the rigid panels. So instead of 400 watts, you could have conceivably 3.5 kilowatts, so 3,500 watts, right, for the same price. The difference is size and weight. If you've got the space for an array that size, you could build a substantial solar array for the same price as that sort of folding solar panel. Or, to put it in perspective, the MPOS ones, so that's 110 watts. Now, you could also get 7 of those. You could get 700 watts for the same price as 400 watts. And arguably, it's not a single point of failure. You could have 7 of those that you could make into an array or multiple arrays for various power banks versus that one. And there's pros and cons for both. Okay, so now we went over some solar panels and difference in prices. What's the point? Why are we talking about it? Well, I'm often asked, what will I need to charge this power bank? What will I need to charge that power bank? What's the best solar panel? Unfortunately, it's a toolbox and it's situation dependent. If you have got a lot of space in your garden, if you've got an outbuilding you could lean the panels against, then performance and value for money, my suggestion is always that you go for the ones from City Plumbing, and it's 75 quid and it's 500 watts. So if you've got an EcoFlow Delta 2, you could have 2 of them in parallel, giving you potentially 1,000 watts, albeit the unit will throttle that to 500 watts. But what it does give you is 1,000 watts of potential surface area to capture low light and poorer weather conditions. That's got a lot of value. But you might not have space for that. Right? You might not have a big garden. You might be in rented accommodation. There's a whole host of reasons why they don't make sense for you. Because I'll often say to people, just buy the big ones, even if you don't need them. Stick them in a blanket and slide them in the shed. And if something goes wrong, you can pull them out and connect them up. That's great if you have the room. We don't all have the room. So that's when we have to look at solar panels and the merits and advantages that they bring, albeit there's a trade-off. And the trade-off is you don't get the same performance for the pound. So, like I'd alluded to earlier in the video, you could get 7 500 watt rigid solar panels for the same price as one folding 400 watt solar panel. A good brand one. And that gives you 3.5 kilowatts of energy capturing ability versus 400 watts. Right? That's a huge difference for the same price. But only if you've got the space and only if you've got, somewhere to store those panels, etc. So rather than paying £550, I paid more than that. I was nearly 600 quid for those panels, and now 550 for the 400 watts. With hindsight, And like I always say to people with power banks, if you want a 2 kilowatt power bank, and if the price point's the same, and the performance values are largely similar in terms of inverter, then get 2 1 kilowatt power banks. Because if one goes down, you'll still have the other one. And the same versus buying a battery. You could buy an extra battery for your EcoFlow Delta 2 or Delta 2 Max or Blue Yeti or whatever it is. You could buy an extra battery and it's always slightly cheaper than the main unit. It gives you extra capacity. That's fantastic as long as the main unit works. If the main unit goes down, which has got the inverter in it, your nice new battery with extra capacity is lost. It's a brick. You can't access it. So I always say, look, for the slight difference in price, I mean, it might not be that slight, £100, £150 for a bigger power bank. It's not a lot of money to give you extra redundancy versus a battery that you can't use. So, and in a similar vein, rather than buying one big 400 watt solar panel, for the same price point, I could have bought 7 110 watt folding solar panels. You might not need them, right? But for the same price point, it gives you 770 watts versus 400 watts for the same price. And also, these things, when you open and shut them, if you're doing that a lot, regardless of who makes them or how good they're purported to be, you will have problems over time. They are for not everyday use. No matter what manufacturer tells you that, these things are not for everyday use. They won't last. They just won't. Right? They just won't. They'll break. You'll get fatigue breaks and delamination on them. They are for camping trips. They are for emergency power, charging power banks and stuff like that. They have a role, and it's a good role, but they're not for opening and shutting every single day. You can do that, but just bear in mind that they won't last. So with that in mind, it's worth considering that rather than buying one big single point of failure, if you've got that pot of money sitting aside, so you want a 400 watt solar panel and you're looking at an Anchor and it's 550 quid, buy 7 of the cheaper ones. Right? You'll have extra capacity, or don't spend the 550, just buy 4 of them. It'll give you 440 and it'll be half the price of that big one. But more importantly than that, if one of them breaks, you've still got the other 3. If 2 of them break, you've still got the other 2. God forbid one of them breaks, you've still got 1. You have got redundancy at multiple levels for the same price point versus one big panel. So, yeah, you're setting them up. You're setting up 4 versus 1, but from experience, the bigger ones can be quite a challenge setting them up on your own. It's not difficult, but I mean, and they're heavier as well. The smaller ones are easier. You, your kids, your wife, whatever. So I'm tending to think that from redundancy and resiliency, price point, I would rather network smaller arrays of solar panels versus larger ones. If, and only if, you don't have the option facility to buy larger rigid ones, because they still represent, in my opinion, the best value for money in terms of performance. So, yeah, let me know what you think of the video. Let me know your thoughts. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Why? We can discuss it.
Over at last. Like and subscribe, folks. Saves him moaning.